especially if you feel that you put your heart and soul and everything into your work, and then boom, they just laid you off. What's the point? What's the meaning in this? And I would argue the more strongly rooted you were in a system, in a foundation, whether it's a system where your mental model is, my work is my identity. I would say probably the harder it is to figure out how to recover what happens after.
This is my conversation with Tutti Taygerly. Tutti is a leadership coach who's led design at companies such as Meta and Disney. She coaches co-founders and tech leaders to embrace their uniqueness rather than hide it away. She's also the author of the book, Make Space to Lead.
Where I do believe that true fulfillment and a true sense of satisfaction lies is knowing what your unique place in the system is. What are you doing that nobody else can do exactly like this?
We talk about how our identity can get tangled up in the systems that we're part of, and what happens when those systems shift or we get expelled from that system. Stick around to hear Tutti's best advice on how to find and celebrate your unique self in the messiness of life and work. Tutti Taygerly, welcome to Design Feeling. How have you been?
Thanks so much. Feeling excited this morning.
Great. How are things down in San Francisco?
Things are good. There's some sunshine coming out, and I have a lot of energy, surprisingly. I've gone through some down periods through the end of the year, and now the facts are the same. The facts and circumstances are the same, but somehow I have a lot more energy and a lot more creativity in this period right now.
Where do you get your energy and creativity from?
Really good question. You know, to be honest, sometimes you don't even know at each particular moment. It's hard to tell where it comes from. The systems that I have found to work in the past are on a couple of different levels. One is physical, really standing up, making sure I get outside, just getting movement. That gives me a lot of energy. That'll reset me instantly.
So just FYI, both Tutti and I are standing right now as we're recording this.
Yep. So I'll give you a framework for getting energy since we have designers here. So the first is the physical, which is kind of movement, but also rest and sleeping. I've actually been really surprised. I've had a ton of creative energy this last week, and I'm also sleeping. So I will keep on going until I feel that I'm tired. And this is so strange. I was just speaking about this with my therapist. This has never happened to me before. I'm able to nap, lie down, rest, and in 20 minutes get up and continue writing. It's been a very strange period that I think has been probably based on years of energy work and energy management. So framework, the first one was physical. The second is really emotional. It's what's happening in my system, what's happening with the 2 teen girls I parent, which is the extremely unpredictable chaos of that system. What's happening in kind of the greater ecosystem of the clients I serve, just the business that I run. But what helps my energy is maintaining my feelings through this, maintaining just some level of stability, which for me helps with like meditation helps, exercise helps. And then the bigger part, which, the framework might be breaking down a little bit, but the third part of it is, I guess like feeling is more spiritual. And then the other part of it is the thinking. So we'll go with physical, thinking, and spiritual or feeling. The thinking being, I have been a workaholic for a lot of my life. I love the work I do. Loved it when I was a designer. I love it when I'm coaching. I love it when I'm writing or making things. Sometimes the work is a distraction because busyness, doing these things could be a distraction. And in other times, it's a great thing that gives me energy. So it can be both.
Mm.
That was a long answer, but
we
I like
love
talking about
long
energy.
answers here. I remember like the first time I saw your profile, the first thing that came to mind was, man, she's a hustler. You've done so much.
Not wrong.
You've done so
What
much
can I
and you've
say?
achieved so much.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you've also written a book called, Making Space to Lead, which is, again, making space within that, the hustle, the busyness. What made you write that book?
So I will talk a little bit about the hustle and then the anti-hustle. I had a tiger mom growing up. I'm sure many people of Asian or maybe Jewish or maybe immigrant descent can relate to that.
Relate.
Yeah. And really, she taught me that my worth is based on what I do. If I came home with an A-, it would be, what is that minus? It was how she grew up. It was her system. It was her framework of love. That was what she knew. And she was basing a lot of her hopes and dreams on her kids. She wasn't able to continue her career after she got married to my dad. And I could see a lot of those unfulfilled dreams being channeled into my sister and me. Thank God I wasn't an only child. It got diffused a little bit. And so that was in my DNA. Hustling was in my DNA. It's what you do. And, I did that. I was high school valedictorian. I went to Stanford. I graduated, got a great job in Silicon Valley, just rose up that ladder. And at the same time, it wasn't just work hustling. It was like, this is the path you're supposed to take. These are the things you're supposed to do. Dated my college boyfriend, got married to him, got pregnant, 2 kids, bought a house in San Francisco. Isn't this the dream? Yeah, I love design. I've worked in so many types of different design companies and different leadership positions, but I've also worked as general manager because I got shiny object syndrome. I like trying new things. But all of it, through the core of it, was always like the hustle, 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 hustle. And that was, I liked my job and my identity was in my job and the validation of it. Yet at the same time, as you know, you can't always design on a deadline. You can't always produce by hustling and working harder and doing that. There is a magic in the spaciousness, the generative process, the gestation time of simply letting an idea sit. And maybe when you're in the shower or when I'm out surfing, it's just going to pop. And I knew that from trusting the process of design, but I never applied it to my life. So I had a midlife crisis. I had the most hellish year of my life, maybe about 5 years ago, when my father-in-law passed, and I'd known him since I was 18. My marriage fell apart, and I had 2 school-age kids, and then my own father passed. And so it was a hellish year. And in tragedy, in these crises comes reflection, growth, learning. So what I ended up doing in the wake of that year was leaving a 22-year corporate career and starting out on my own. I had an inkling that I loved coaching. I loved working with people. And I wanted to do more of it. And that was something that I did in that year. And so in a way, to answer your question, Make Space to Lead is a little bit memoirish in that it talks about my experiences with hustle culture, with success, with climbing that corporate ladder, with my tiger mom. And it talks about how that's not ever going to be enough, how it wasn't enough for me. And it is really through, if you will, the feeling and not the thinking or the doing, just this notion of the white space all around the events of our day, the emotions, is only when I made space for that and spent time doing that, was I able to step away and redefine and recreate a new career where I work for myself. I'm a executive coach. I'm a keynote speaker, a writer, and really it helps me come back to some of my roots. I had been an English major for a long time and I loved writing, but I put that to the side because yeah, sure, I might be writing some specs and some PRDs and writing some keynote slides, but it wasn't a thing. And the month that I left my last full-time job at Facebook, at Meta, I made a vow that I was going to write every week. I was going to write and publish a blog post every week. And it was what I was learning. The first one was, how I left the corporate world and embraced the unknown. And I think I did this for about 18 months, every single week. And it chronicles how I started a coaching certification program, the things that I was learning, what I was learning from my clients. And eventually, after about 18 months of this or so, I'm like, oh, I can feel another calling. I feel the call to put all of this into a book. I mean, as designers, we love physical artifacts, right? This was a fun artifact to be able to work with the crew that I wanted for the cover design, to put like my heart and soul into it. And it's a very personal book. And in some way it's a coaching business card because it chronicles my journey leaving, my journey into the anti-hustle. And it also chronicles, how I coach people. It walks through exercises for, okay, how do you find this part of you that maybe has imposter syndrome, that is self-critical and holding yourself back? How do you dream bigger? How do you create a community around you to help you learn and grow? All the kind of traditional coaching, self-transformation topics. So in a way, it's also a business card for what I do.
Wow. I mean, there is so much resonance for me there and so much I want to unpack. I think first thing I want to, I definitely relate to is, having been brought up in that Asian upbringing where your self-worth is determined by your grades, still stays with me, even till today. And it's really difficult to let go of that conditioning where you're constantly on this ladder of achievement. You're, once you get to the first rung, the second rung, and the third, and so on, it just keeps going. And I think one of the things that I said in one of my recent episodes is that I have always treated my life as a mountain. And, especially being born in Nepal, just mountains everywhere. Yep. And for me, like mountain was a metaphor of life in terms of, okay, it's something that I need to climb and work hard towards and, put in the effort. It was not meant to be fun because if you're having fun, you're not really working hard. Those kind of like mentalities, which I'm sure like you can relate to as well. It was only recently, maybe like last year, I was like, man, that's such a shit way to live life. Life is not just mountains. It's valleys and rivers and forests and deserts. And so often in our drive to climb the mountain, we don't take notice of these other aspects of life that we might not think will get us to our version of success, right? So, Tutti, what is success to you? Well, maybe what was success to you, previously, and what is success to you now?
If we use your mountain analogy, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to climb mountains. Success to a lot of people throughout humanity was summiting Mount Everest. And I think that is absolutely fantastic and worthwhile and a big, big goal. And for me, throughout my school days, my college years, my early career, success was climbing that ladder. I mean, the first inkling of success was, okay, I have a bunch of jobs. I'm going to pick this most stable job because as an immigrant, I needed an H-1B visa. So my heart goes out to all the layoffs happening right now to tech workers in the US when they're not just losing their job, they might be losing their home and stability because you got whatever it is, 30, 60 days to find another job. So that was the first version of success for me. What is the stability that's going to give me the freedom to work where I want to work? The next parts of it were all the external trappings and validation that we all want. Success was, oh, I want to be a manager. That's the next rung. Success was, oh, I've been working at this SaaS B2B company. I want to work on consumer work. It's shiny. Success was, oh, I've been working inside companies. I want to know what it is to work for a design firm and to work for all of these brands because I've been working on this one project for 2 years. I want variety. And success was always as well, am I rising up in title? And am I rising up in money? Am I rising up in all these external trappings? And guess what? There is nothing wrong with that. That's what I want to say to all the listeners. We're all humans. We all need validation, and that's okay. I think that when that may become less okay, when that version of success may become less okay, is when you start feeling, is this it? Is this enough? Like, I'm supposedly gaining success, but why do I not feel good? I'm going to bastardize Stephen Covey's quote because it's about ladders, but we're going with mountains here. What if you find like you've been climbing on these mountains, and you're at the top of Mount Everest and you put down that flag that's like, I'm here, and you take that selfie, you're like, look at me, I'm on top of the world. What happens when you wake up the next day? What's the feeling that you feel? Is it like, oh my gosh, I am so grateful. This is wonderful. This wave of contentment and fulfillment? Or is it, what's the next thing? What's the next milestone? What's the next goalpost? Wait, nothing's taller than Everest. My analogy is failing. What is it like to pioneer space travel so that I'm going to put the first humans to live on the moon because Everest wasn't enough. I need the next
second
thing.
Person. It's like, what's next, right? You don't even stop to celebrate a lot of the time. You just move on to the next thing.
But this is where I think this is really interesting because everything that I've been talking about success is extrinsic, which is useful and helpful and valuable, but it's not enough. So I think the answer is both. Success is the balance of the extrinsic and intrinsic, and that's what I look at now. Of course, there's still goals that I want to reach. These goals are, amazing. I have a revenue goal of 1.5xing the revenue from my business this year. And it's not purely a revenue goal, but it's a goal to say, am I producing the services and value that clients actually want to pay for as a monetary thing? But that goal and that vision of success for this year comes with a counter goal, comes with a counter metric, which is on working half the hours that I worked last year. And this is super personal for me. I have a lot of things going on with my family, with my teen daughters, where it's very focusing, like a design constraint. This is my top priority. I have a design constraint. And so it's going to be, I'm working half the hours and I want to 1.5x my income. That's the external. But the internal stuff is, I want to have energy. I want to be creative. I want to feel like I have a lot of capacity, and I want a richness in every single relationship I have. One of my, I don't think I've ever said this out loud before, but it is a marker of success, and it's a little embarrassing, but every single person I interact with, I want to leave them better off from that interaction. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward with my clients, but mean, it's the same thing with like the coffee shop barista, with, someone I say hi to in the water when I'm surfing. And, that's a marker of success to me. And these are all things that ultimately make me feel good. And I think when we're all looking for success, we're looking to feel good. And we don't know that the external stuff, it's what we're taught and conditioned, makes us feel good. But look, the world's chaotic. People will take that away in a heartbeat. You change jobs, you have an asshole boss, you get laid off, poof, it's gone.
Yeah.
The stuff, the success you can never have anyone take away from you is the intrinsic stuff. And so it's both.
Yeah. Wow. And that is so close and topical to what's been happening in the industry, this year, last year, with all the the economic upheavals and the layoffs. And there is so much. I mean, people are starting this year with a lot of uncertainty and that lack of sense of stable ground and safety. And I know a lot of my friends who have started the year with this sense of disorientation. It's like, where am I? What's happening? Like, and you see everyone else around you, like, making goals and setting resolutions and whatnot. And you're like, I'm just trying to make sense of what's going on here. I'm just trying to survive, not thrive. What advice would you have, for those people who are, again, trying to get back, regain their sense of orientation and the sense of, stability?
I think that we all have periods in our life where different things matter to us. This notion of striving, earning the grade, earning external validation, that's how our system is set up in school and in university. And I would say it's actually a good thing. It teaches some level of skill, some level of having to conform to a system, some level of learning, some level of knowing that some teachers are fair, some teachers are unfair. And then often, I'd say like in the next period of life, you might be at your first job. And I would say in your 20s, if it matches to a lot of high achievers, professionals, designers who may be the audience of this, if you're on a traditional path, let's say you went to university, let's say you did well in it, then you're able to devote a lot of your time and energy to your profession. Because there's nothing else maybe drawing on your energy and the things that you need. And that's an era, like an era of your life. So you might not have as many beautiful costume changes as some other eras. And similarly, where you are right now, if you're feeling some level of adriftness, ungroundedness, this is another transition, another era of your life. It's a liminal space, if you will. And I think a lot of it is still happening in our collective reaction to the liminal space of COVID and the pandemic, and trying to be like, okay, what happens next? And I would argue the more strongly rooted you were in a system, in a foundation, whether it's a system where your mental model is, my work is my identity. My work is making impact in the world through design to make the world a better place for this audience and this people. The more strongly rooted you are in that, I would say probably the harder it is to figure out how to recover what happens after, especially if you feel that you put your heart and soul and everything into your work and then boom, they just laid you off. What's the point? What's the meaning in this? The thing that I've seen, and I coached probably a number of people through this period where we were pretty much anticipating a layoff. And a lot of what we looked at together was, all right, what's your goal? Not to the level of, my goal is to get a greatly exceeds on my next performance review and get some money, some promotion, some next title. And these are all valid goals. So I don't mean to patronize them. but the more deeper beneath it, which is like, okay, this is good. You want that. To what end? And when you keep diving deeper and asking to what end, why, you can do the 5 whys and go deeper. To what purpose? This is where some universal stuff emerges. And it's so universal that when you actually say it or recognize it, like when I do it, I'm like, oh my fucking God, that is so cheesy. Is that what I really want? Freedom? Really? That's my goal? Freedom? So cheesy, right? But it's there because it's universal. And I'm using that as an example because in this era of working, I coach so many people who want freedom, who want a way out of being beholden to, say, a corporate overlord, whether it's moving from working from a large company to founding your own startup, whether it's, leaving this world and making your living as an illustrator, whether it's, I talk to a lot of people who want to become coaches who are like, how do we do that? Because there's a natural overlap between like the empathy and people creating. So I'm totally rambling from your question now, but I think it was, what do you tell these people when they're in this state of despair? It's like, it's a liminal space. You might have been very, very tied to something before. And look, it sucks when the rug is pulled out under you and you're seeking and you're questing and you're looking, but that's all right. Like, it's the questions that matter so much more than the answers. And maybe you haven't spent that time asking the questions. So, do it. Take the space. And one other thing that I'm going to say, and I will say it unapologetically, which is that if you're a listener to this podcast, there's a good chance that you and we are all massively entitled. It's not like we're likely to be homeless tomorrow. We have been in a tech bubble and in a design bubble. And look, I don't want to minimize the loss of a job, because that's huge, or the loss of meaning, because that's huge. But if we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you have the home, if you have the food, if you have the loved ones, you'll figure it out. Of course you will. Trust the process. It's like designing. This is the messy middle right now. Trust the process. Keep asking the questions. You'll figure it out. And you'll be more fulfilled when you get to the other side.
I love that. I love how that kind of, gives people a sense of perspective. And it comes back to like, having the sense of gratitude for the things that you already have, and you already have a lot more than, the average human population on Earth. And I love, when you're, speaking there, I'm kind of getting this visual of this plant being uprooted, a plant that has dug its roots like really deep on this ground, and now they're being uprooted. And yeah, that is going to be, there's going to be a lot of discomfort there for the plant to be uprooted. And I guess our first goal in that instance is how do I make myself, reroot myself again. But like you said, I think taking the time to use the privilege that you have, the entitlement that you already have, to create that space for you, rather than trying to rush into this urgency of rerouting yourself. Personally, for me, that's been really beneficial exercise, because you just come out of it with such greater level of self-awareness as to what really matters to you. And a lot of times, for example, I realized that job titles don't matter to me anymore. There was a time when I was chasing job titles, for example, from a junior to a senior to a lead to a principal, and the list goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what's the point of all these job titles when I'm not even doing the work that actually matters to me, that actually brings me the meaning that I seek? And it was only when I was able to create some space out of that daily routine, I was like, I could see things that I didn't see before. And I think, I definitely agree with, in terms of embracing or having the courage to embrace that liminality, the liminal space that happens in between in these transitionary periods in our life, which we all go through.
I have a tool that I can recommend
I love
for people
tools.
who are going through this. I'm a witch, so I work a lot with cards, and I don't believe that tarot or cards are a way of divining the future like Cassandra. It's a design tool. It can open and widen your perspective. I have a card set called Postcards from the Liminal Space.
Oh, cool.
And if you're ever taking yourself too seriously, if you want some help through like the liminal space, you can always just shuffle the cards and, see what's the message that's coming out right now. And like the one that I pulled out is basically the veil is thin. So maybe that could mean if you're questing, you'd be like, maybe I'm close to that border between thinking all the time and reaching into feeling. Maybe I'm close to the answer. Maybe I'm close to like finding and feeling and knowing something different because the veil is thin. And if I keep doing this, if I trust the process, maybe it'll happen.
Yeah.
So it's a tool. It's a tool to help you embrace the liminal space. I recommend it if someone's looking for tools, because tools help us get through and make sense of the world. So postcards from the liminal space.
I am a big convert when it comes to tarot cards. One of my previous guests, Dr. Adeola Enibokan, she was a guest on my podcast a couple of years ago, and she does tarot reading as a designer. And that really opened my mind to how having these external prompts can really trigger these internal, subconscious associations in the brain. And it's not about things like predicting the future or anything like that, but it's about triggering these associations in your brain that otherwise wouldn't get associated with that external help. I remember like one of the cards that I pulled out when I was doing my reading. And this was when I had just quit my full-time job, from a consultancy because I was burnt out. And I was in this liminal space. And I attended the workshop with her. And one of the cards I pulled out was something to do with death. And there was another card around, getting on a boat and going somewhere. So the interpretation for me from that card was, okay, let the old die and get on a boat as a migrant would, just take the things that you really, really need for the next life, get on a boat and see where that takes you. And that, I guess that association in my mind really gave me that comfort that, I'm in the right track. There's nothing I need to worry about.
I think that's a lot of the work that is important for us to do when we're user researchers or designers. And for me, I really consider this as a coach. I think some of the superpower is providing comfort, confidence, spaciousness, and helping to provide it for ourselves and for other people. I mean, it really is. Tools and experiments are all buttresses. They're all buffers to say, hey, this is all part of the process. It's really going to be okay. As long as you're still alive and you're still trying new things and you're moving on a path.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that we as designers, we embrace that messiness and uncertainty in our design processes. But
sometimes
it is difficult to apply that same mindset when it comes to your own life because there is so much emotional baggage that's attached to it. You're like, okay, what if I get homeless? What if I do this? What if what if that happens? And I think for me, like what's been helpful is to bring some level of neutrality into your own perspective about yourself. And, we're both spiritual. And one thing that I'm learning to do more of is just trusting the universe. It sounds kind of woo-woo, but, the universe doesn't give a flying fuck. But the fact that you are part of this grand thing that's happening, makes you not just a part of the universe, makes you the universe. And you're having this extremely unique experience that no one else, no other entity is having in this very moment. Not that we know of. And letting that I guess, game play out can sometimes be the best thing we can do, just to kind of let go. And, like how this concept of, Taoism, of just letting things happen and going with the flow. Just trying to adopt that mindset and letting go of control has been very beneficial for me, because I've always been taught to take control. You are always 100% responsible for your life, and you can need to go out and get it for yourself and whatnot, which is it's a great mindset that's helped me in the past, served me in the past. But there has been times where it's probably better to let go of that mindset and let go of that control and just, I guess, float on the river of the universe that you're flowing in.
And I think we all do that. If anyone's listening and finds this a little bit woo, one of the things I'd ask you to consider is, if you're stuck on a problem, if you've been sitting at your desk for too long, if you've been trying to figure out the solution to this thing, whether it's who you talk to next, whether it's how you resolve a problem with a difficult person, like whatever it is, it's pretty amazing to get outside and go for a walk. It's pretty amazing to, walk through a park, even if it is Central Park surrounded by buildings, or, the beach. Just getting outside, whatever the elements are, whether it's daytime or nighttime, shifts your perspective. And if that's not a way to believe, like, the answer of, well, maybe you do trust the universe. Maybe you can be out immersed in nature and look at the moon and the stars. I don't know what else is. One of the other things that I always ask people to do, because I have a fierce skeptic, right? Someone tells me something, I'm like, no, that makes no sense. You're out of your mind. That is so woo. But one of the things that one of my teachers and guides has always said is like, well, if you're trying to form trust, if you're trying to build relationships, what's the 10% in what they're saying that you can believe in? So if you're listening to this and you're like, what is this trust the universe bullshit? The 10% that I offer you is, well, do you feel different sometimes when you go outside? When you, go for a swim, or when you walk with your feet on the grass? And if so, then maybe there's something in there, that there is something bigger. And the power of nature is kind of similar to the science behind the power of meditation. The same way that eating healthy and exercise is good for you. It's very, very hard to do.
Yeah. And when it comes to this whole notion of trust, I think, it is so crucial to also trust yourself and the unique superpowers that you have. And one of the things that you're very big on is, what this concept of navigating your otherness, in terms of embracing what makes you unique, embracing your differences, maybe even embracing things that you think of as weaknesses, right? Coming from your own very eclectic, background you've lived in 7 different countries. You've had so many different experiences around the world. You come from an Asian background and now live in America. I think as humans, we are programmed to assimilate, right? We were programmed to not stand out from the herd. And I remember when I was growing up in Nepal, we used to watch, He-Man cartoon. This is back in the 80s. And most of the cartoons I watched were Western cartoons, TV shows. And I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be blonde and white. And I thought that was the standard of attractiveness. And then that kind of later transitioned into that was the standard of, I don't know, intelligence or professionalism or whatever, right? And I remember growing up, wishing I was white. And after moving to then Australia and then now the UK, what I've realized is that I always tended to kind of like hide my Nepalese identity, my Nepalese heritage, because maybe in a way I was ashamed of it. I don't know why, but I always thought that was inferior to this kind of Western ideals of being, feeling, and thinking. And it was only more recently that I was like, trying to get back in touch with my own roots and heritage. So I guess my question to you is, how can people get started in starting to connect back with their roots, what makes them unique, and not feeling a sense of shame in embracing where they've come from, their roots?
This is such an important question, and I'm so glad you're bringing it up. I'm going to go a different direction and then come back here. Ultimately, in my heart and soul, I'm a systems designer. So I think, especially for many people who are trained as design thinkers, as we are all trained, I think a first cerebral approach is not a bad one. So the first cerebral approach I would invite people to look at is to understand the system and understand the history of the system. The things that you're talking about is, the history of our world, the history of colonialism, the recent history of who are the superpowers, which is, I don't do so well in like far, far back history, but recent history being Europeans and the US out of colonialism taking over a number of different countries. I went to high school in India. Thailand is very proud, my home country is very proud of never having been owned by any other foreign power. But really, it's kind of the system of independent nations, like having this sense of belonging and then being like, boom, invaded by something else. And look, there was a lot of good stuff, that came out, maybe some learnings, maybe some things, maybe like more riches or whatever that is. But if we take a look at the system and where the power dynamics are, the power here in this case was from the West. West is best. It's from colonial power. It's from the power of media and entertainment. You talk about He-Man. It's from the power of Hollywood. It's from the power of, we don't know what we want unless we see it. I was in the media space for a long time, and there is such power in seeing faces and figures like yourself. There's such power in seeing like not just the norm. I was just reading, like the Emmys just happened. This is the first time that, best male, I don't think it's called this, but best actor and best actress went to the two Asian actors for Beef. It's the first time that that's happened, right? And it's because the systems are changing. They're changing very, very, very slowly because systems take a long time to change, but they are changing generation by generation. So the first part that I say is understand the system and understand the system that you grew up with. My mother was born in Hong Kong. My grandparents were all from southern China. And from the war, World War II, were kind of trying to escape out of the various invasions. I think primarily it was the Japanese invasion then, and fled to both Hong Kong and then eventually to Thailand. To this day, because she was born in Hong Kong and Hong Kong was a British colony, she holds her British passport. She doesn't want to give it up for a Thai passport because it's British. And that's best. And that's the system she grew up with. Like, we are a product of the systems we're in. We're a product of the company cultures, of like our education system, of what our parents believe in. So, of course, you want it to be white. I want it to be white. That was an era or a time through, the 80s that we probably grew up in, where this was the epitome of what we saw. Doesn't happen for my kids. My kids are biracial. They're half Asian, half white. They grow up in San Francisco. Like, they have been inundated with wokeness their entire life. For them, the system that they grew up in, and I'm not comparing goodnesses or badnesses of systems. Systems are simply systems. If you're a system designer, you know how hard it is. You want the system to work, and then it evolves and grows on its own. But they grow up in a completely different system where, no, I can't share this story. She will kill me. All right, I can't share any of these stories because I promise not to. But let's just say that I really want to, but I won't. In these systems, it's better to be unique. You don't want to be basic. You don't want to have the basic name, the basic family. You don't want to be vanilla. For her and the people around her, your otherness, your uniqueness, that is special. So these things come and go. So the first question that I ask people to look at is, what is the system? And then secondly, where do you want to be in this system? I'm not giving you a very conventional answer, which is like, look at your strengths, look at your heritage, look at your values, look at what you're good at. Because, I get bored of giving that answer. But it's a bunch of designers. So it's look at the system and look at where you want your place in the system to be. And also, and this is the part where this is the, no shame part. We all want to belong. We group together in tribes. I just watched Mean Girls. You see it in a high school ecosystem. You go into the lunchroom. Am I part of the jocks? Am I part of like the band geeks? Am I part of like the art crowd? Like, this is basic human nature. You look for people like you. You look for things in common. We want to belong. And then for the longest time when you and I were growing up, and still remnants in the corporate world, there is one way to lead. It is a patriarchal system. There is a race and style of leader that is preferred. This is what you see when you simply look at the data and the facts. There is a style of leadership, maybe a holdover from military days, I don't know, that is more command and control. And of course, that is the baseline standard that we look at and say, that's good. And that's how the educational system has been. Back to the fact that, like, what do you want? You want the grades because the teacher is going to tell you what's right and what's wrong. It's not bad, but see the system, know the system, understand the system, and then you can figure out what your place in it is. I went completely off. So redirect me where you want us to go.
I love that because we are assigned these lenses through which, we're meant to look at the world. And what we see might not be reality. It's just, a version of reality that we're seeing. And what you're saying is that don't just look through the lens, look at the lens. What is the lens that you've been given? And what is the distortion of reality that you're actually seeing? And I think there is great power in that awareness, because a lot of times we're not even aware that there are these stronger forces at play here in terms of how we interpret the world around us. We just take everything that we, get through our sensory inputs as reality, when every person has their own version of reality manifesting at any given moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. So, looking back at your own self, I'm sure you've had to go through these challenges associated to your own identity, trying to find your own place in the world. and trying to extract your uniqueness despite the fear of maybe the possibility of not, being able to belong to certain groups, the fear of standing out. What advice would you give to that younger self, the younger Tutti, who is still trying to figure out and embrace their uniqueness?
I think it depends what you're looking for right now. There is no way that I would tell anyone in middle school or high school to embrace your own uniqueness right now. Figure out what unique butterfly it is you are. Part of it is just looking at motivation and what the questions that are facing you are. If you're in middle school or high school, you might just be like, how do I fit in? How do I be like everyone else? And if that's the most important thing, that totally makes sense. If you're in the first 90 days of a new job, I really wouldn't be thinking about what is my own uniqueness. I would be really thinking, all right, what is this place? Where am I working? What is the culture? How do I ask questions? How do I stay open and curious and understand? So I'd say the first step is seek to understand. Understand the system. Again, whether it's the high school system, the first job system, the, move to a new neighborhood system, new country, new city, what's the system? After you move past that, then the next question is, how do I want to fit within this system? Do I want to assimilate? Or do I want to do something different? And I have no right or wrong answer to this. There are plenty of times and reasons to assimilate. Not the least being when you take a job, it's a contract that you are going to do certain things, hit certain expectations, and that's why they're paying you, because it's a business, right? You got to meet the basic expectations of the job because that's the contract that you've signed. Where I do believe that true fulfillment and like a true sense of satisfaction lies is knowing what your unique place in the system is. What are you doing that nobody else can do exactly like this? And look, we are conditioned. I pretty much mostly work with high achievers. We are conditioned to look for where we're doing things wrong. Think about the last time you got a performance review. Let's say it was written. How much time did you spend on you're doing a great job on this and this and this and this? Or did you flip through it? Be like, what do I need to know? What do I need to improve? I'm not doing well. How do I improve?
I do that all the time.
We all do this, right? Whatever we will go into reasons, but so if there was just one thing beyond this understand the system that I would want everyone to walk away with, it is really an understanding of how are you doing what you do in a way that's different than anyone else. And I think there's a couple of ways that you can look at it. It's like, what are you good at? When other people talk about you or think about you, are they going to say, Anik, you're really good at pulling together a presentation very quickly. Or Anik, you're really good at asking questions and, unveiling this. So it's like, what are you good at? And this could be, you might have the self-awareness to know this for yourself, or you might not, in which case use the mirrors, the trusted people around you just to be like, what do you think I'm good at? A really good thing to ask your parents. They will give, they have to mostly kind of love you and give you that part. Ask your parents, your best friend, your trusted, what am I good at? So that's useful. The second thing, what lights you up? What gives you energy? What gets you into this state of flow? For some people, it might be collaborating with other people and create some. For others, it might be like deep time coding. Might be designing, deep time design, but what type of designing? Is it like the detailed micro interactions? Is it, I don't know, the service design over time? Like, what is it? And when you're asking yourselves these questions, go as excruciatingly specific as you can. Oh, if you're in an interview and someone asks you, what's your favorite part of the design process? Please don't say, oh, the research and discovery. So generic. At least go, 3, 4, 5 levels deeper and give examples. Like the gems are in the specifics. So the two things was, what are you good at and what do you enjoy? That's probably a good enough space to start from now. I mean, the third tool that I do like a lot is this notion of values. What do you stand for? What matters to you? And I really look at these as like spanning your personal and professional life. Like these are kind of basic tenets. You've all made design principles. Figure out what the design principles for your life are. And you've also all made design principles that were bullshit, like simple, human. Don't do that. Make it specific and find a way to talk about it in which it's unique to you. So, like, instead of simple, just be like, cuts things down to their barest essence. That's another way of saying simple. That's just a little more specific. So those are 3 ways to explore and 3 questions to explore, like, who am I? What matters to me?
Love that.
Oh, one last thing. People forget about it a lot. And I think it's a really interesting question. When I was doing my research for my second book about leadership in Asian American women, I asked every person this, and it was like the most, I think, informative question, which is there a value or a set of beliefs just growing up in your particular culture with your particular parents or grandparents that really stood out to you? And a lot of people will say hard work, hustle, things like that. But then the next question is really interesting, which is, well, how has that helped you in your career? And has there ever been a time where you've needed to leave that behind? So 3 really interesting questions that I think go into people's lived experiences. We all have a very unique fabric and texture of a lived experience. So don't ignore it. Go back there and investigate and mine and see if there's anything interesting there that helps with your particular flavor of otherness.
Love that. So if I were to ask Tutti Taygerly, what makes Tutti Taygerly unique? What would they say?
I am pretty unafraid of risk. I have like this ridiculous sense of I want to try it. Just this huge, huge, huge yes. Like it's always a yes. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. And then I run experiments and then I evaluate. And it's a strength because I do lots of things. And it's a huge weakness because it can leave me very, very unfocused, diffuse, and can really hurt the people around me if I am taking risks that do not feel comfortable.
And where does that come from for you?
I wish I knew the answer to that question. Because it's definitely a question I've asked myself a lot. I've always had it. It could come from, a desire to rebel against a controlling mother and not being told what to do, not being told no all the time. It could come from like the adventurousness of my family, my parents who, my dad worked for Thai Airways. He was their growth guy. He was the guy who they would send out to a new country, a new city to like figure out what to do there and figure out how to establish, like, is this a worthwhile like flight path for Thai Airways? It could come from my grandparents or other ancestors who, left China in search of something better. Your guess is as good as mine. But it's there.
Yeah, I think what I've picked from that is there might not be just one source of who you are right now. In my mind, I'm getting this visual of this, those ancestry trees you get, like with all these like branches, and you are right in the middle. So who you are has been a culmination of your ancestral heritage and where you've come from. And there are so many different sources that have come together to make you, you. And sometimes we don't need clear answers to all of them. Sometimes we just need to acknowledge, who you are in the moment,
Yep.
and what you can do in that moment.
Yeah. What I love right now is that I'm playing with my next book. I'll share it because I have 2 book ideas. I haven't quite decided if it's one or the other yet. But the one that kind of fits this sense of me-ness is, I don't have the exact title, but Unicorn Yourself. Learn how to experiment with your leadership using the techniques that have worked in Silicon Valley, which is run a bunch of experiments, take a bunch of risks, try different things, and figure out how you can learn from it. This is a kernel of an idea. I think this is the first time I've shared it publicly, but it does relate to what is the core of how I live and what I do.
Lovely. I like that. When is this book coming out?
Can't answer. I'm still working on the book before that. So
have you figured out a title yet?
In my lifetime, it will come out.
Have you figured out a title yet?
It might be Unicorn Yourself, but I don't know.
Cool.
We'll see. Titles come last. Titles don't matter.
Okay.
They come last. You have a working title and then you get input from 50 million people. A title is really a marketing exercise more than anything else. And often other people are better at marketing yourself than you are.
So what comes first then?
The kernel of the idea, the who it's for, who are the people you're talking to, what are the problems that people face? The same as design. What are the problems and user needs you're solving for, and who are the people? And then what's the solution? What's the idea?
I was recently reading a book called The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. And in that book, he suggests, make art for yourself first, and your target audience should always come last. What's your philosophy around your writing, your creation? Do you write for yourself or your past self, or do you write for a certain target audience in mind?
It depends. I would argue that if you're making art, it's entirely for yourself. But designers aren't artists. We have constraints, we have commercial viability, we have product market fit. So I think there's different types of writing and different types of creation and creativity. And it depends what the purpose is. I write a lot for myself. I write to learn. That was why I told myself when I left Facebook that I was going to write a blog post every single week. It was for myself. It was for myself, for my learning. It was very, very selfish. I still do a lot of that. Most of the ways that I go out and experience the world, I'll write about for myself. I write a lot. I had a whole 3-part series of leadership lessons from Burning Man. Just what is this amazing, wonderful world and experience and ecosystem, and what can you learn from that? But that's very different than a book. I would never write a book for myself because it takes so many thousands of hours for that. For that, it's very much why am I doing this? Why am I writing this? I'm writing this so that I can change someone's life. I can give them a new idea. I can give them a new perspective. So for that, that's very much in a framework where I don't consider that art. I consider that, a message, impact. I consider that a designed experience where in order to evoke transformation, because, I'm in the solid sphere of nonfiction books, nonfiction self-help business books, and sometime I hope to write fiction in my lifetime. But right now, it's very much, I want to evoke transformation in people. And how I do that, I need to know their needs, their problems, who they are, and then have a solution for that. It's not art. It's how design's different than art.
Nice. So...
Oh, I will add one part of it, though.
Joe, go for it.
If you solely focus on all of those things, that's just the thinking. And some people will do that. You will read some dry, maybe academic papers of like, here's the need, here's the research, here's the user, here's the solution. I go back to like the He-Man stuff that we talked about. You gotta make it entertaining and fun. There is so much content out in the world. No one's gonna read something dry. You gotta add the feeling into it. And the easiest way to add the feeling into it is to add you into it, your own personal lived experiences.
Yeah.
That's the easiest thing to write about, really.
Yeah.
So.
And, you know, like I've read so many books where you can't really see the author in the book, in the content. And for me, that's an indication of, should I say, lack of self-awareness or courage to express themselves or put themselves in their content and try to sound professional, or just try to be this version that you think the audience wants?
I would argue it's also a style thing. This whole like, be yourself, be vulnerable, put yourself in the picture, put yourself in the story is all very new in the last decades. I mean, we're a product of the systems and the culture we're in, you know, and I talk about that a lot in terms of like your work culture, but I also look at the greater, your country's culture, the world culture. And I think that's an evolution. Like and I do the exact same thing as you do, so I'm not picking on you. Like, that's what we look for. We look for the story, the humanity, but there is a whole other standard of writing that was much more textbook. And that's how you consume information from experts. And they're experts because of their facts and information, the design thinking, if you will, and not their emotional lived experiences of it. And,
you know, that was the system that they were part of, which dictated their behaviors. And that's okay. You know, there is neutrality
and it evolves.
In that. And it evolves. Yeah, it changes. Yep. And the system that you're part of will shape your the way you express yourself, and that's okay as well. There is no right or wrong way to do it.
And the system is made up of individuals. So you can change the system. It just may take a very, very, very long time and feel like it takes a ton of energy, but it'll happen.
Love it. So, Tutti, you've lived in 7 countries. If you had to pick one country's cuisine to cheer you up on a bad day, which one would you pick? And what's the cuisine?
It's really hard. This is really hard. Like, remember, I like lots of things. Having to pick one. All right. If I have to pick one, I would pick Japanese because there is such the wide range of how I want to be cheered up. Yeah, there's nothing like as comforting as a big bowl of like ramen with like noodles and broth. And then maybe I just need like a spark of like uni or some new fish that I've never tried just to, yeah. And then there are so many like depths of Japanese cuisines that I've never tried. And what I love the most about food in Japan is that you will go to this one place and all they will have is this one thing, this one dish, and they have perfected it so well. All they're going to have in this one place is chicken katsu curry, but it's going to be the best chicken katsu curry that you've ever had. And I value expertise and like specialization as well.
Nice.
So I pick Japanese food for that variety.
Lovely. I've never been to Japan. It's always been on my list, but you've made me want to kind of bump it up my list a bit more. So what other...
Nepal's a little closer than London.
So what other 6 countries are in your list where you lived? So obviously the US.
Wait, that I want to go to, or the ones that...
the ones you lived in.
So I was born in Singapore, and then we moved to the Netherlands. After that, moved to Hong Kong, which at that point was considered a country. Thailand, the US, and I've lived in the UK as well.
So wow.
Those are the countries.
Wow.
Not that many, actually. I mean, it was all during a particular period of my evolution. I hope to live in many more.
Nice. Yeah, I'm sure we can, go into so much more detail as to your learnings from all these different countries, and also, what are some of your future aspirations around. Well, let me ask you, like, if you could live anywhere, where would you live?
Too hard of a question for me to pick like one. Like, ideally, I would, spend a year in a number of different places. I think it's hard to pick just one. Like, if I had to pick just one, I suppose San Francisco is as good as any.
Love it.
Yeah. I have access to mountains. I have access to ocean. I have access to culture, and I have huge depths of community here.
Nice. I've never been. The closest I've been is LA, but yeah, again, another one on my list.
Yep.
So, Tutti, imagine that it is your last day on Earth, and you are on your deathbed, and someone comes up to you with a tiny post-it and a Sharpie and asks you to write your last few words. What would you write on that tiny piece of post-it?
Who's it for?
It could be, let's say it's for whoever's listening right now.
Probably trust the process. It's the one I come back to over and over again that isn't too overly cheesy and, and I think reflects a lot of the core of what happened. The other one I considered, which my father-in-law did pass on his deathbed, was choose love. So maybe I will present these as the duality together. Trust the process and choose love.
It's powerful. I think, that's something that I'm learning through my mindfulness practice in terms of how powerful it can be to bring love as one of your choices that you can make. Because a lot of times we don't think consciously about love. It's just meant to happen in the background. But when you consciously choose love, even when you're feeling anxious, if you can bring in your compassionate self to give love to your anxious self, that can really calm down a lot of your anxiety. And again, that stems from your conscious choice you've made for love. And for me, trusting the process is about, trust, pretty much about trusting the universe. The universe is going through a process, and you're part of that. And your process might be at a much more micro level, but it's still a process that you can have faith in, and be in the moment.
The only other thing I would add to choose love that I think breaks it down to a small action is, if you're not sure what to do, what's the kindest thing you could do in this moment? If you're arguing with someone, if you're pissed off, choose love to be in that little micro interaction. It's the kindest thing. And then you can go ahead and ask the follow-up questions. Kindness for who? For the people you're with, for yourself. But it just makes it a little more specific and less grandiose. But, that parting deathbed post-it does have to have some level of grandiosity as well.
Love that. So, Tutti, there are so many spaces we went to over the last hour or so. And one of the spaces that we explored was around these liminal spaces that a lot of us are in, these transitionary periods, which can feel like you're being uprooted and you don't have this ground to, stable ground to land on. And that can be really anxiety inducing. And I think one of the things that I learned from you was around just acknowledging where you are, what kind of space you're in, and what kind of space that you've been uprooted from. And that can explain a lot as to why you're feeling what you're feeling right now. And whatever you're feeling right now is okay. And especially if you do have the privilege to be able to make some space in this liminality, you could use this as an opportunity to see what else is out there that you can explore beyond just the narrow vision that you might be constricted within. Can you use this as an opportunity to discover your own uniqueness or more of your own uniqueness and what value that you can add to the world beyond just what you've been doing so far. Understanding the system has been another crucial theme for me, and trying to understand where you are currently in the system and where you want to be in the system as well. Finding that unique place of yours in the system, and some of the questions you recommended is something that I'll definitely try in terms of what are you good at and what lights you up in your work, in your life, and experimenting with yourself, like you said, unicorn yourself, because I think for me, life is an experiment. It's sometimes this experiment succeeds, sometimes it fails, but doesn't mean that you are a success or failure. You're just a scientist, adopting that scientist hat to conduct experiments with your life. And when you're doing that, it is so crucial to trust the process, because a lot of times we don't know what the experiment is going to lead to. The results are uncertain. So trusting the process becomes important to keep your own sanity. And in the moment, when there's decisions you have to make, choices you have to make, choose love. And also ask yourself, what is the kindest thing you can do in that moment?
Nice summary. Look at you. You're good at this.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I was trying to make sense of all these juicy insights and learnings that I've collected in the past hour, and I was just trying to do justice to that. And I think I'm sure there's a lot that I missed there, but
justice done. Justice done.
Trust the process.
There you go. There comes He-Man.
Great. Thank you so much, Tutti. It's been a pleasure, and it's been such an enlightening experience for me, and I'm sure it's been the same for anyone who's listening right now. So if people want to get in touch with you or follow you or check you out online, how can they do that?
Reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's Tutti Taygerly. If you want more information, go to my website. It's tuttitaygerly.com. All of this stuff, I talk and write about it all very, very openly. So you sign up for my newsletter, you'll make sure you get it all in your inbox. And then finally, if you're looking for a speaker, a teacher for any of these topics, I love to speak on DEI topics around otherness and looking for diversity of thought. I love to speak on leadership. Please reach out. I'll come do it.
Awesome. And thank you so much for that, Tutti. It's been a pleasure. And I hope that, we will see you again on Design Feeling for part 2. There's so much more that we definitely need to dig into. And until then, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
So, what did you think of the conversation? What's the one thing that stood out to you? Drop it in the comments below, and please consider giving this video a like and a subscribe if you'd like to support this channel and get this video out to more people. And feel free to drop me a line if you'd like to share any thoughts or ideas or maybe suggestions for any topics or guests that you'd like to see. See you next time.